You do not entertain chaos, you eliminate it. High-value women don't waste energy trying to fix what thrives on confusion. When someone shows you their toxicity, you don't explain, justify, or plead. You observe, then you move. It's not cold. It's clarity. You've worked too hard to build peace inside your life. Anyone who threatens it gets filtered out. You don't argue with disrespect. You don't negotiate your worth. You make your standards known by how you carry yourself, not by how much you say. Toxic people feed off of your reaction. They crave your attention because it gives them power. But you've learned. Emotions don't rule you. You pause. You assess. You respond with strength or silence. Both are weapons. And you choose wisely. When someone tries to control, guilt trip, or manipulate you, understand this, it's not about you. It's about them. And a high-value woman refuses to be a mirror for anyone else's broken self. She reflects confidence, not chaos. You don't let people close because they want in. They earn their space. You measure energy. You protect your peace like it's currency because it is. You don't owe anyone comfort, especially those who thrive on discomfort. Here's the truth. You don't always need closure. You don't need to explain your boundaries to those who constantly cross them. When it's time to go, you go. Quietly, completely, and you never look back. Being a high-value woman means being strategic with your energy. It means knowing your worth so deeply that no one gets to discount it, not even for a moment. Let them call you too strong, too direct, too much. That's fine, because what they really mean is too powerful for them to control. And that's exactly who you're meant to be. You don't react to noise, you calculate your response to it. There's a difference between emotional suppression and emotional discipline. Suppression is weakness pretending to be strength. Discipline is strength shaped into control. High-value women don't let emotions hijack their decisions. They feel everything but act on almost nothing unless it's filtered through reason, because they understand that the second you allow someone to trigger you, they own you. Toxic people survive off reactions. They throw chaos into your life just to watch how you stumble. The more they get under your skin, the more control they gain. But a high-value woman doesn't give that kind of access. She doesn't take the bait. She sees it coming. She breathes through it. She watches while the toxic person digs their own hole. And while they act out, she calculates her next step with silence and poise. This doesn't mean you lack emotion. It means your emotions don't run the show. You don't lash out. You don't raise your voice. You don't spill your piece trying to prove your point. Because you know the loudest one in the room is usually the weakest. Power doesn't scream. It's felt in silence and presence and precision. The woman who can sit in the middle of a storm and not flinch, she's the most dangerous kind of strong. Not because she's unfeeling, but because she's unshaken. Toxic people will test you. They will lie, provoke, insult, and twist your words. But a high-value woman understands you don't win by playing their game. You win by removing yourself from the board. No warning, no dramatics, just quiet execution. Discipline means you don't engage in energy-draining conversations just to be understood. You don't explain the same boundary 3 times. If someone can't respect the first no, they don't deserve the second one. You don't try to fix people who aren't asking for help. You don't try to convince people of your worth. You already know it. That's why you're calm. That's why you're steady. That's why they call you intimidating, because they can't shake you. Most people react because they're trying to regain control. But the truth is, emotional reactivity gives your control away. Every time you explode, beg, plead, or over-explain, you lower your value. A high-value woman doesn't move out of desperation. She waits. She listens. She acts only when it serves her peace and preserves her power. You must understand the difference between emotion and weakness. Emotion is human. But weakness is what happens when you let your emotion become your master. Toxic people will always try to drag you into emotional wars because they know they'll lose in a battle of logic and self-respect. But you don't attend every war you're invited to. You let your self-control speak for you. And when you do respond, it's with clarity, not chaos. This is not about being robotic or cold. It's about being intentional. It's about choosing your battles wisely. Not every insult requires a comeback. Not every betrayal requires closure. Not every situation deserves a response. Some things you just outgrow. Some people you just outclass. And nothing makes a toxic person more powerless than being met with your indifference. They expect the reaction. That's how they know they got to you. But when you don't flinch, when you stay grounded, make eye contact, breathe slow, and say nothing, they begin to unravel. That's emotional dominance. That's strength. You control the pace. You control the tone. You don't chase. You don't beg. You observe. And you decide, is this person elevating my life or draining it? Are they worthy of my energy or just loud enough to distract me from my peace? And if the answer is clear, you act with precision. You don't storm out. You don't burn bridges. You simply walk away with your power intact, because walking away with grace is louder than any argument ever could be. High-value women don't get pulled into chaos. They stand above it. Because their emotional world is their own. It's not controlled by outside noise, manipulative tactics, or emotional games. It's grounded, guarded, strategic. You don't respond to disrespect. You remove yourself from it. You don't retaliate. You redirect your energy. And while others exhaust themselves trying to be seen, you become unshakable by being emotionally sovereign. This is your power. Emotional discipline is not a soft skill. It's a survival skill. And in a world filled with manipulation, noise, and emotional vampires, it's your armor. When you master it, you don't just survive toxic people. You make them irrelevant. And when you stop reacting, you start winning. Not everyone deserves access to you. That's not arrogance, that's awareness. A high-value woman doesn't let people into her life because they show up. She lets them in because they prove they belong. She's not impressed by words, flattery, or surface charm. She's watching behavior. She's measuring consistency. She's paying attention to how someone shows up when they're not being rewarded for it. Because to her, access is not free, it's earned. Toxic people don't respect doors that stay wide open. They walk in, rearrange your energy, drain your focus, and then leave without apology. A high-value woman sees that pattern early, and she closes the door without fear of being misunderstood. She's not here to be liked by everyone. She's here to live in alignment, and that requires boundaries so strong they offend the people who benefit from her being weak. She doesn't let guilt keep her tied to people who drain her. She doesn't let history excuse disrespect. She understands that loyalty to dysfunction is not strength, it's self-abandonment. And she refuses to abandon herself just to make someone else feel comfortable in their chaos. A woman of value doesn't make herself available to everyone. She is present, not accessible. She is kind, not naive. She is compassionate, not permissive. People confuse her grace for weakness until they test it. Then they realize her space is sacred, her peace is protected, and the moment someone disrespects it, they lose access to it. No drama, no screaming, just distance. Permanent distance. She knows that just because someone wants to be close to her doesn't mean they know how to treat her. Wanting her is not enough. Matching her standards is what counts. She is not moved by attention, she is moved by alignment. And if someone's energy is inconsistent, manipulative, or draining, she removes them with zero hesitation, not out of hate, but out of deep, unshakable self-respect. She doesn't believe in keeping people around just to avoid being alone. She's not afraid of solitude. In fact, she uses it to recharge, reflect, and reset. Alone time is not punishment, it's maintenance. It's how she stays sharp. It's how she keeps her frequency high. So when people come into her life, they're not filling a void. They're enhancing a life that's already full. She's not available for confusion. If someone keeps her guessing, she walks. If someone can't communicate with clarity, she walks. If someone shows up one day and disappears the next, she doesn't chase. She replaces. Because she understands that inconsistent presence is a form of emotional manipulation, and she doesn't negotiate with manipulators. This kind of woman doesn't need 100 friends. She needs a circle that reflects the values she lives by: loyalty, respect, truth, energy. If someone violates those, she doesn't explain her standards to them. She removes them. Because she doesn't teach people how to treat her with words. She shows them with decisions. Selective access isn't about being cold. It's about protecting what's valuable. And her energy is her most valuable currency. She doesn't give it out to anyone who asks. She doesn't entertain gossip, small talk, or emotional vampires. If someone's presence costs her peace, she can't afford it. Because she's done overextending herself. She's done giving second chances to patterns. She's done sacrificing her well-being to be the bigger person. She doesn't argue over her boundaries. She states them once. If someone crosses them, they disqualify themselves. She's not angry about it. She doesn't need revenge. She simply exits the connection and keeps it moving. Her focus is too sharp. Her time is too valuable. Her purpose is too real to be detoured by distractions. People will call her intimidating, distant, too much. That's fine. What they really mean is, she's not easy to manipulate, she's not easy to access, she's not easy to drain. And they don't like that, because they want women who are constantly available, endlessly forgiving, and afraid of walking away. She's none of those. She has walked through fire to become who she is. She's rebuilt herself in silence. She's healed in the dark. And now, she guards her light with a warrior's focus. If someone can't meet her where she is, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, then they don't belong in her life. Not because they're bad people, but because she refuses to shrink herself to fit spaces she's outgrown. That's what selective access means. It means valuing your peace so much that you refuse to trade it for approval. It means trusting your intuition so deeply that when someone feels off, you listen. It means knowing that every yes you give to the wrong person is a no to your growth. A high-value woman keeps her world small but powerful. Her connections are rare, intentional, and deeply aligned. She doesn't keep people around out of obligation or fear. She keeps them because they elevate her, respect her, and honor her space. If not, they're out. Simple. And that's how you protect your power, by protecting your access. People tell you who they are all the time. The problem is, most ignore it. But high-value women don't ignore patterns. They don't make excuses. They don't get caught up in potential. They observe, closely, quietly, consistently. Because observation gives them what explanation never will, the truth without performance. When someone lies once, it's not always the words that give them away. It's the shift in tone, the change in their eyes, the pause before they speak. Most people are too busy responding to catch these things. But a woman with self-control watches. She listens more than she talks. She lets people talk long enough to reveal themselves because eventually, they always do. She doesn't interrupt. She doesn't confront right away. She doesn't waste time arguing about something her intuition already confirmed. Instead, she collects data. She tests silence. She tests space. She observes how someone behaves when they're not being chased, when they're not being praised, when they're not being given anything. That's when their real character shows. And once she sees it, she never unsees it. Toxic people rely on you being reactive. They need you to get emotional, to explain, to defend yourself, to try to make them understand. But when you don't do that, when you say less and watch more, they start to lose control. Because they don't know what you're thinking. They don't know what you'll do. And that's where your power lives, in what you withhold, not in what you give away. She knows this. When someone violates her boundaries, she doesn't need to explain why she's walking away. She just walks. Because anyone who values her wouldn't need an explanation. They'd feel the shift. And anyone who disrespects her wouldn't understand the explanation anyway. That's why she doesn't explain. She acts. She exits. She enforces. She understands that actions are always louder than words. A person can promise you respect and still cross your boundaries. They can talk about love and still lie to your face. They can perform loyalty in public and betray you in private. Words are noise. Behavior is data. And she knows how to read it. People will try to convince her she's overreacting. They'll say she's imagining things, that she's being too sensitive. But she trusts her instincts. She doesn't need consensus to validate what she already feels. She spent too long learning to hear that inner voice. She doesn't silence it now just to make someone else feel comfortable. If something feels off, it is. And she doesn't need to prove it. She just adjusts accordingly. This woman doesn't chase closure. She observes the disrespect. She recognizes the pattern. That is the closure. She doesn't go back to explain why she's distancing herself. She doesn't justify why she's changed her energy. She lets her silence speak. Because the people who get it don't need an explanation. And the people who don't get it don't deserve one. She studies people the way a strategist studies the field. She notes how they treat others when they have nothing to gain, how they act when they're under pressure, what they do when no one's watching. And from there, she decides their level of access to her life. It's not emotional. It's strategic. Because once you know someone's nature, it's foolish to keep expecting a different result. She doesn't confuse history with loyalty. Just because someone's been around for years doesn't mean they've grown with you. She doesn't let familiarity blind her to the truth. She observes who shows up with energy, not just presence. Who shows her love through action, not just talk. Who keeps showing up even when they're not getting anything in return. That's who stays. There's a quiet power in not responding, in not giving people what they expect, in not explaining every move you make. Because the moment you stop trying to be understood, you become untouchable. You protect your energy. You preserve your mystery. And most importantly, you keep your peace. She lives by one truth. If someone wants to be in her life, their actions will make it clear. And if she has to wonder, question, or explain, then she already has her answer. That's what observation gives her. Clarity, no drama, no guessing, just facts. And when the facts are clear, her decisions are final. So she doesn't react to disrespect. She doesn't explain herself to people who are committed to misunderstanding her. She doesn't beg for effort. She doesn't plead for honesty. She watches. She evaluates. And then she chooses. She knows power isn't found in how loudly you speak. It's in how deeply you see. And that's why she wins. Not by controlling others, but by mastering herself. Validation is a drug, and most people are addicted to it. They chase compliments, applause, attention, believing that their value is something to be confirmed by others. But a high-value woman operates differently. She's detached from the need to be liked. She's detached from the need to be understood. She's detached from the constant pull to prove her worth. Her identity is rooted in something deeper than opinions. It's rooted in self-mastery. She doesn't walk into a room wondering if people approve of her. She walks in already knowing who she is. Her posture, her energy, her presence, it all says one thing: I belong here, whether you see it or not. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. That's what happens when you've done the work to validate yourself from the inside out. People who constantly need validation are easy to manipulate. They shapeshift to fit in. They shrink to be accepted. They silence themselves to avoid disapproval. And in doing so, they abandon themselves. But not her. She's not afraid to be the outsider. She's not afraid to be misunderstood. She doesn't bend for comfort. She stands for truth, even if she stands alone. When someone ignores her, she doesn't spiral. When someone criticizes her, she doesn't crumble. When someone withdraws approval, she doesn't chase it. Because her confidence is not something someone else gave her. It's something she earned through the pain, through the silence, through the trials that taught her how to live without applause. Toxic people rely on your hunger for approval. They dangle validation like a weapon. They love bomb you with praise when you're obedient and withdraw it when you show independence. But a woman who doesn't need external validation becomes immune to that game. You can't reward or punish someone who doesn't crave your approval, and that makes her dangerous. In the best way. She lives by principle, not popularity. She chooses integrity over attention. She speaks with conviction, not to be liked, but because it's true. If it makes people uncomfortable, so be it. She would rather be respected for her standards than liked for her compliance. You don't control a woman like that with compliments. You don't keep her with shallow praise. She sees through flattery. She listens for intention. She watches for action. And if the energy doesn't align, she walks, no matter how loudly the world applauds the person in front of her. She doesn't compare herself to others because she understands that comparison is a trap rooted in insecurity. When you seek validation, you're constantly looking sideways. Who's ahead of me? Who's getting more attention? Who's being praised? But when you're grounded in yourself, you're not competing. You're creating. You're building. You're evolving on your own timeline for your own reasons. This woman doesn't post for likes. She doesn't speak for applause. She doesn't dress, move, or act to be accepted. She curates her life based on purpose, not performance. And that's what makes her magnetic. Not the need to impress, but the complete absence of it. She's authentic, and people feel it. Her power comes from her ability to validate herself. She looks in the mirror and approves what she sees. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. She's made peace with who she is, and that peace cannot be shaken by someone else's approval, or lack of it. She's not afraid to say no. She's not afraid to set a boundary, even if it means being called difficult. She's not afraid to walk away from what doesn't feel right, even if it costs her attention, love, or praise, because none of those things are worth sacrificing her self-respect, and that's what most don't understand. Validation feels good in the moment, but when you build your identity on it, you're never stable. One compliment can lift you, and one insult can destroy you. You become a puppet, dancing for approval, afraid to disappoint anyone. But when you cut those strings, when you detach from that cycle, you become something unshakable. You stop explaining yourself. You stop needing to be seen a certain way. You stop wasting time trying to win people over who were never meant to walk your path. And instead, you start leading your life from within, with clarity, with power, with peace. And yes, people will say you've changed, that you're colder, that you're distant, but you're not. You've simply evolved past the need to perform. You've grown beyond the urge to be liked. You've stepped into a higher version of yourself, one that's no longer willing to trade authenticity for acceptance. That is the power of detachment from validation. It's not about isolation. It's not about not caring. It's about caring deeply about the right things, your values, your vision, your voice, and refusing to let the noise of the world drown that out. Because once you learn to validate yourself, no one can take that power away. A high-value woman never stays anywhere she's not respected. Not because she's impulsive, but because she's prepared. She doesn't threaten to leave to prove a point. She leaves when the point has already been made. She doesn't get trapped in situations that drain her, because before she ever enters, she already knows how to walk away. That's the power of an exit strategy, calm, calculated freedom. She doesn't wait until the storm hits to figure out her direction. She observes the weather early. She watches the signs, and when something no longer serves her growth, peace, or purpose, she moves, not emotionally, not dramatically, strategically, with poise, with silence, with no interest in chaos. People stay stuck because they're unprepared. They invest so much time, identity, and energy into people, places, and environments that aren't evolving, and when it's time to go, they panic. They stay longer than they should. They start explaining themselves. They hope things will change. But a high-value woman doesn't operate from hope. She operates from clarity. She knows the difference between loyalty and self-destruction. She can love someone and still walk away from them. She can have history with a place and still understand when it's time to leave it behind. She's not attached to comfort zones. She's attached to her growth. And when something begins to shrink her, she doesn't ask for permission. She exits. Toxic people. Test your boundaries by seeing how long you'll stay after being disrespected. They watch how many chances you give. They listen to your words, but focus on your actions. When you say, I won't tolerate this, but stay anyway, they know they can keep pushing. But when your actions match your energy, when you exit without argument, they're left stunned. Because they relied on your fear to hold you hostage, and you just took that fear off the table. This woman doesn't owe anyone her presence. If someone violates her values, disrespects her time, or plays with her peace, she doesn't debate it, she detaches. Her silence is not weakness, it's closure. Her absence is not revenge, it's protection. She understands that not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. Some people come as lessons, some as reminders, some as mirrors. And once their role is complete, she lets them go. She doesn't cling, she doesn't beg, she doesn't relive the past trying to rewrite it. She honors the experience, takes the lesson, and moves forward. She's not reckless. She plans her exit with thought, with vision, with discipline. She creates emotional distance before physical distance. She secures her finances, stabilizes her mindset, prepares her space. And by the time she walks away, it's not a reaction. It's a decision that's already been lived out in her mind 100 times. She doesn't stay out of fear of loneliness. She's not afraid to be alone. She's afraid to lose herself in the wrong environment. She's afraid of shrinking her standards just to feel needed. She knows that solitude is better than fake peace, and peace is never found in places that ask her to settle for less than she deserves. Her exit strategy isn't just for relationships. It's for friendships, business deals, social circles, anywhere her integrity is at risk. She's not emotionally entangled with what doesn't feed her spirit. She's not addicted to attachment. She's addicted to alignment. And when something goes off track, she adjusts. Not in panic, but with precision. She doesn't wait to be broken before she makes a change. She doesn't ignore the red flags. She doesn't wait for someone to finally see her worth. She sees it, she honors it, she protects it, and she leaves when that worth isn't reflected back to her. People may call her cold, heartless, too quick to cut off. But she's not cutting people off. She's cutting off access to her power, to her presence, to the parts of her that only the deserving should experience. She's not punishing anyone. She's preserving herself. She knows closure doesn't always come through conversation. Sometimes it comes through boundaries, through walking away, through not answering, through not explaining yourself over and over to someone committed to misunderstanding you. Her strength is in what she doesn't say, what she doesn't engage in, what she walks away from without turning back. Her exit isn't loud. It's effective. It leaves no room for confusion. She doesn't go back and forth. She doesn't reopen doors once they've been closed. She doesn't second-guess her standards because someone else is uncomfortable with them. She trusts her instincts. She honors her truth. And when she leaves fully. That's the essence of her power, not in how long she stays, but in how well she knows when to go, not in how much she gives, but in how fiercely she protects her space when it's no longer being honored. She doesn't wait to be destroyed before she detaches. She watches, she learns, she acts, and she always has a way out because she's never afraid to choose herself. Again, and again, and again. So understand this. Your power isn't in how much you endure. It's in how quickly you recognize when something is no longer serving you, and how decisively you act to protect your peace. You don't need to argue. You don't need to beg. You don't need to prove anything. You need clarity, composure, and a quiet exit. A high-value woman doesn't announce her worth. She shows it by what she allows, what she tolerates, and most importantly, what she walks away from without hesitation. You are not here to survive toxic cycles. You are here to break them, to rise above them, to lead yourself powerfully and unapologetically toward what aligns with your highest self. And when it's time to go, you go, without fear, without noise, without regret, because peace is the only place where real power lives. And you, above all, deserve to live there.